Hi, good morning to all of you. This is Keshab from India. All the students and teachers, as well as the scholars from across the world, are well aware that Professor Joseph S. Nye Jr. passed away at the age of 88. Okay, so he was the first person in the world who introduced the term the soft power. He is a person who revolutionized in the theory of political science and international relations. In the last 3 decades, there was not a single country, there was not a single political scientist or international relations who did not use the term or who is not aware of Joseph S. Nye. Okay, so he was such a scholar, he was such a talented person who is widely known across the world. Joseph S. Nye, I would like to pay my respect, or I would like to pay my humble tribute to this great political scientist. Okay, so Joseph S. Nye Jr. He was a Harvard scholar who coined the term soft power to describe how cultural forces, humanitarian aid, and education can be as effective in diplomatic efforts as be effective as military and economic might. He died at the age of 88 on 6th May at a hospital in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and at the time of death he was 88 years old. Okay, so the death was confirmed by his son Daniel Nye, who did not cite the actual reason. Dr. Nye has been planning to take part in professional meetings in Washington and England later in the week. Dr. Nye had wide-ranging interests in policy and politics, international politics particularly, from African and Asian affairs to nuclear non-proliferation, and was Dean of Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government from 1995 to 2004. He also had stints in government, including as chairman of the National Intelligence Council under President Bill Clinton. Yet he was best known as a great political scientist, and he is best known as a plain-spoken theorist of international relations. He wrote total 14 books, and also he wrote hundreds of articles and delivered lectures in different universities across the world. So it's not just a question of whose army wins, he argued. It's also what about those story wins. He told that it's not just a question of whose army wins, it's also about whose story wins. So this is quite unique term, okay, or unique words in the realm of political science, because it's not that who wins or with how mighty one country or powerful a country is, rather whose story sells. That's a matter of question. Recently you will find that regarding Indo-Pakistan war, Pakistan is spreading rumor, Pakistan is spreading misinformation, wrong information across the world, and it got support. Though it is a all-time friend or all-weather friend, Pakistan today extended its all-out support to Pakistan. Okay, so you see, he is the propounder of these beautiful terms. Dr. Nye brought a new understanding to how power and influence are wielded on a global scale. So in addition to introducing the idea of soft power in 1990 and publishing a book on the subject in 2004, he was the co-author with Robert Cohen. Robert Cohen is also another great political scientist in the of international relations or political science. Okay, so that influential book of he was a co-author with Robert Cohen. The name of the book, The Power and Interdependence. The book was Power and Interdependence, and it is a famous book almost all the political scientists across the world have read this. Okay, so that influential 1977 book described the importance of international cooperative arrangements in diplomacy and trade and helped shape the international framework of neoliberalism in public affairs. So scores of U.S. Political scientists or U.S. scholars have cited him, have quoted him in different articles and different books and different researches. Okay, so this was such a great political scientist that take birth rarely, and we are happy that during our time we have come to know him, his works. Okay, and you know that scores of U.S. Officials, including the military leaders and diplomats, cited Dr. Nye as major influential on their ideas and policies. He often traveled across the world to discuss his ideas with international leaders from China to England. Britain's Independent newspaper once said his itinerary work as packed with engagements as that of any rock star with an autobiography to sell. So before Dr. Nye's notion of soft power gained ascendancy, I like to say that it was diplomacy had often been described in the words of Hans J. Morgenthau, because Morgenthau was the premier leader of political science or concept of theories of international relations. Okay, so he was Hans J. Morgenthau was a theorist of the realist school of international relations as a matter of logic, bribes, and threats. But Dr. Nye told the Harvard Gazette in 2007 that I looked at our military power and our economic power and said that there is still something missing. Though there are military power and economic power, still there are something missing, according to Dr. Nye. And he said that there is still something missing, which is the power to get what you want through attraction and persuasion rather than coercion or payment. He concluded that many non-military programs that the United States had put forth. You know, what are the non-military powers or non-military programs that the United States of America initiated? Yes, to name a few, we can say that since 1940s, you will find that Voice of America was started in the United States of America. This is not a military power, rather this is not an economic power, rather this is a soft power. The Marshall Plan, Fulbright Fellows for students, you will find the Peace Corps, humanitarian aid, and even American preeminence in film and popular culture seem to grow from a set of common values. Nye, Joseph S. Nye put a label to these ideas that are separate and distinct from military or economic power. Charles A. Stevenson, a foreign policy scholar at Johns Hopkins University and one-time State Department official, said in an interview, quote, "These are principles we have stood for in our foreign policy. U.S. leadership has been enhanced since World War II because we have practiced soft power as well as hard power. The idea is to be helpful, not coercive," unquote. Dr. Nye was a pioneer in the theory of international relations, and for many years he and other officials in the federal government said that international investment in humanitarian aid, medical assistance, educational and agricultural programs, and news broadcasts from Radio Free Europe and other outlets paid individuals in protecting global security and raising America's stature in the world affairs. In a 2007 Kennedy School interview, Dr. Nye quoted President Donald Trump's first Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, as says, quote, "If State Department funding gets cut, I need to buy more ammo." unquote. During the Cold War, the United States and its allies had a strong military presence, but Dr. Nye argued that tanks and fighter planes may not have been the decisive reasons for the collapse of communism and the Soviet bloc. Quote, when the Berlin Wall went down, it did not go down under any artillery barrage and hard power, unquote, he said in a 2016 interview with the Foreign Policy Association. Quote, he went down under people wielding hammers and bulldozers. In other words, their minds had been changed. They had been attracted and persuaded, and that's an example of soft power. Actually, he was a propagator, and he was a founder, or he was the creator of this term soft power, and he tried to spread this concept across the world, because he thought that instead of military power or economic power, that soft power is equally important to change the mind of people. Okay, so and in the other words, their minds had been changed. That's why Berlin Wall has been broken or has been fell down. Okay, so they had been attracted and persuaded, and that's an example of soft power. And that was created by culture, values, ideas, and ideas. People on the eastern side had lost their faith in communism. So you say he wanted to give complete credit to not military power, rather on change of mind or change of mind power that has been transformed by the culture, by ideas, and by transformation of their minds or thoughts through literature. Okay, so he wanted to give importance of soft power for transforming the culture, transforming a country's growth, a country's development, a country's overall or holistic development. Okay, so software is equally important as well as or along with economic power and military power. Okay, so Joseph Samuel Nye was born in let me say about this great personality, Joseph Samuel. That is we call that Joseph S. Nye. Joseph Samuel Nye Jr. He was born in South Orange, New Jersey on January 19, 1937, the third of four children. His father was a Wall Street-born trader, and his mother had been a secretary before her marriage. When Dr. Nye was a child, his family moved to a 100-acre farm near the village of New Vermont, New Jersey. Dr. Nye picked apples, cared for animals, and developed a lifelong love for gardening. So he was fond of gardening in his childhood. Okay, so at Princeton University, he briefly considered studying for the ministry until he read the Bible all the way through and emerged as a lifelong antagonistic. He has spent one summer away from campus hitchhiking across North America and working in a mining camp on the border of Alaska and British Columbia. Dr. Nye focused his studies on economics, history, and politics, graduating in 1958. He then received a Rhodes Scholarship to study at the University of Oxford, where he was on the row and rugby teams and met students from Africa, which helped him refocus his interests on post-colonial democratic movements and international relations. After receiving a second bachelor's degree in 1960, Dr. Nye enrolled in graduate school at Harvard, where his professors include John Kenneth Galbraith. Oh my God! John Kenneth Galbraith was his teacher. I read his book from American Library. Okay, so John Kenneth Galbraith was his teacher there. Okay, so whose career spanned the academic and diplomatic worlds. Dr. Nye received a doctorate in 1964, 2 years before my birth. Okay, so joined the Harvard faculty, and 2 years later he began and almost 6-decade association with Kennedy School. During the late 1970s, Dr. Nye was a Deputy Under Secretary of State in the Carter administration, Jimmy Carter's administration. From 1989 to 1993, he directed what is now the Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs at Harvard, where he helped lead studies on the dangers of so-called loose nukes, or poorly monitored nuclear arsenals in the former Soviet Union. Dr. Nye later oversaw nuclear non-proliferation efforts in the Clinton administration, as was an Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Affairs. He was credited with strengthening U.S. relations with Japan as a counterweight to China's rising profile. Dr. Nye lived in Lexington, Massachusetts, and owned a farm in New Hampshire, where he did much of his writing. His autobiography, A Life in the American Century, was published last year. He was a member of the Executive Committee of Trilateral Commission, which seeks to foster international cooperation, and a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. So his wife of 63 years, the former Molly Harding, died in December. Survivors include 3 sons, John, Benjamin, and Daniel Nye, and 9 grandchildren. So the term soft power has become an enduring touchstone in foreign policy circles, although it has not been universally well received. In his book of 2009 entitled Power Rules, journalist and one-time government officials Leslie H. Gelb argued that soft power did little to persuade foreign leaders to do your bidding, and derided it as in foreplay, not the real thing. They derided him as but his idea was a foreplay and not the real thing. Okay, so other experts contended that Dr. Nye's ideas are doubly he had to bear criticism, or he had to bear that this happens with all the people. I mean, those who are trying to gain prominence, those who are rising, okay, in the hierarchy of society. If you do something new, if you do something great, then definitely there are not less number of leg pullers. Okay, so this is not only in India, this is everywhere in the world, and people from across the world, you will find that they had to suffer a lot of things, a lot of pains, and after they gained. Okay, so you see, other experts contended that Dr. Nye's ideas are doubly important in the current climate, when the Trump administration is, as Stevenson put it, quote, slashing, eviscerating, destroying, and removing many of these humanitarian efforts that have been in place for decades, unquote. So last month, in a Harvard Kennedy School podcast interview, Dr. Nye assessed the long-term effects of such norm-sharing policies. Basically, he said, these suggest that you were not even thinking about America first, you were thinking about America alone. So this was the conception or perception of Joseph S. Nye, and I tried to give here a little respect or tribute to this great person, and this was actually published in the Washington Post on 10th of May, and it was written by Matt Schudel, and I'm grateful to all of them. I definitely express my thankfulness to Mr. Matt Schudel, who wrote such a nice obituary of Professor Joseph S. Nye Jr. With this, I would like to conclude here. Thank you very much. Thank you.